Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away. Had to find the person I'd become. You should go back home, go back home, go back home, go home. It's been there all along. You should go back home, go back home, go back home.
Okay, so right now I'm filming on the Sony A7 II with the 24mm F1.4 G Master lens in a really low lighting condition at the moment, shooting at 1080p 60 frames per second in S-Log 2 Pro. And this is what the video looks like. And then later on, halfway through this video, I'm going to swap over to the Nikon Z6 just to give you a rough gauge between the two video qualities. Alright, so let's talk about the Nikon Z6 for just 1 minute. I don't want to bore you out with the specifications. This is a 2019 24.5 megapixel camera, full frame of course. The price for this body, the Nikon Z6 body only, is about 2,400 Singapore dollars, and the lens is about $1,100, so total package will come up to about 3,500 Singapore dollars. And this is also using the latest Z-mount lenses and also using a new FX format backside illuminated CMOS sensor right here, so you're going to get really good dynamic range because it is backside illuminated. And it's also using the X-Speed 6 image processor, so this will be really fast. That's why burst photos on this can go up to 12 frames per second, so that's really fast. Basically, in terms of video, you can shoot up to 4K 12-bit if you use external recording. Hence, they use the CFast memory card over here. Not a really common card in most cameras, but it is pretty expensive. It has really high read and write speeds, but it's really expensive, and the reader for these cards is super expensive. I remember buying the CFast card reader costing me about 70 bucks just for a card reader. So the EVF on this Nikon Z6 is really nice and sharp and clear. 3.69 million dots, and it is a lot better than the Sony A7 II right now that I'm filming on right now. I previously thought that Sony A7 II's EVF was already pretty good, but this is even better than the Sony A7 II's EVF. And coming to the LCD screen on the back, both cameras are using tilt-up screens. This of course is larger, 3.2 inch, higher resolution than the Sony A7 II's, and it is touch enabled, so you can use your finger and play around with the menus and stuff. Really nice grip, great ergonomics. I love the handling on this camera as compared to the Sony A7 II. They are relatively the same. This has a slightly bigger grip and is slightly bigger as well in terms of the full size of the body. One thing that is pretty cool is that over here you can see that they separate the pictures mode and the video mode, so you need to swap in between the pictures and the video mode every time you want to do whatever it is you want to do. This is because you might have different settings that you want to use for photographs and different settings for video. So this, of course, with its rugged design, magnesium alloy body, is completely weather sealed. Unlike the Sony A7 II, weather sealing on the Sony A7 II is not a strong point. They also have a top LCD screen over here, so you can see your settings. The A7 II does not, unfortunately. Very nice LCD screen on the top over here, and yeah, navigation and all that, it is pretty easy to use, very nice. Okay, so this Nikon Z6 also comes with 5-axis in-body stabilization, and they also have some OSS lens available, or in Nikon terms they call it VR, vibration reduction lenses, available to get dual IS, and it gives you about 5.5 stops of IBIS on this Nikon Z6. And lastly, in terms of autofocus system, they have a 273 single autofocus point, which is a hybrid system consisting of phase and contrast based detection. Okay, so right now we're filming on the Nikon Z6 with the 35mm F1.8, shooting in flat picture profile, 1080p 60 frames per second as well. Okay, so coming to the Sony A7 II, the body alone costs about 1,300 Singapore dollars, but this lens, the 24mm F1.4 G Master lens, actually comes in at 2,000 Singapore dollars. So in terms of package, between the pricing of these two is only about $200 difference. This coming in at about 3,300 bucks. Nikon Z6 setup is about 3,500 bucks. This, of course, the lens is so expensive because this is a wide angle lens plus extremely wide aperture at f1.4. So coming to the design, it is slightly smaller, more compact than the Nikon Z6. The grip is smaller, not as nice as on the Nikon Z6, but it is pretty doable, slightly lighter as well. Battery life is not very good on this camera. This uses the same battery as the Sony A6500, so really small battery life. The Nikon Z6 has a much bigger battery life than the Sony A7 II. The EVF, it is pretty clear. It's even better than the Canon EOS RP and the Sony A6500 and stuff. So I pretty much like the EVF here. It is pretty much usable, but the Nikon Z6 is much bigger and much clearer itself for the EVF. The LCD screen and the navigation, the menu is always the weakest point of all Sony cameras. I'm glad that right now the Sony A7 III has taken care of those issues. So this is a tilt up screen, same like the Nikon Z6, which is non-touch enabled, so you can't do any touching on the screen. Basically, you need to use the dial on the right hand side over here. They have no LCD screen. One thing good I like is that they have a dedicated port not to get at the battery for your SD card over here. In terms of waterproofing, like I said before, this certain parts of the Sony A7 II is waterproof, weather sealed basically, but some of it isn't, so not really reliable if you're going to be shooting in rugged or wet, snowy conditions. The Z6 would be the better choice, of course. 24.3 megapixel camera, so still pretty much in the range of the Nikon Z6, which is 24.5 megapixels, but of course in terms of video specs, this only can go up to 1080p 60 frames per second at 50 megabits per second. That's the max, so not really good for taking videos. The Nikon Z6 on the other hand is fantastic video quality. Nikon Z6 can shoot 4K 30, can also do 1080p 120 frames per second, and if you have external recording, it can go 4K 12-bit if you use something like the Atomus Ninja 5. So really powerful video specs on the Nikon Z6. In terms of the autofocus system, this basically is using the older Sony autofocus system, using the face detection autofocus, but it is still pretty fast. As you saw just now, I was filming on the Sony A7 II in the previous clip. Pretty fast autofocusing system and good face detection as well. Not so much of eye detection. They do have smile detection. The Nikon Z6 has face and eye detection, but unfortunately if you're filming video right now, you cannot use the eye detection. Basically, when you're filming videos on the Nikon Z6, there is only face detection and no eye detection. Burst photos can only go up to 5 frames per second, so not much for burst photos as well. Audio quality, the Nikon Z6 has really good audio quality. Sony A7 II also pretty good, much better than some of the other cameras that I've used, but audio quality is pretty good, but better on the Nikon Z6. I'm using the Rode Wireless Go Mic Mobile, of course, and yeah, basically that's about it, the comparisons between these two in terms of the specs. So right now, since it's nighttime and we're in low lighting conditions, let's take a look at some low light photographs, or basically night photographs, that I did in a really popular tourist destination here in Singapore, Marina Bay Sands.
Go